Linux Mint, a distro that I've always tried to use in the past couple of years of my Linux journey. I've always tested Linux Mint a couple times on different types of different hardware and laptops and computers, and usually Linux Mint always does a rather good job. And well, they have been running a new beta version of Linux Mint 22, and well, it's finally released as an official ISO, or you can actually upgrade to it if you're on 21.3. I'm pretty sure that's what 21 is up to right now, so you'll be able to upgrade to 22. And I wanted to show the features that are available in this release, and just my experience when using Linux Mint on a rather old 2015 laptop. It's like an i3, and just using it for the last, I think, 2 weeks. I've been using Linux Mint 22 beta, and then up to the official release, and then also testing Wayland, which is very experimental right now on the Cinnamon desktop. So as you can see, I'm already capturing Linux Mint on my capture card on this Acer laptop, which is an Acer Travelmate from 2015. As you can see, there is some Linux stickers on the back also, because that's cool. I guess I did buy them, and they were I think like $1 at some point on sale, so I got them really quickly. But as you can see, some of the new features that are available in Linux Mint is, well, you can't really see the difference in Linux Mint 22 and 21.3, and I guess that's one of the good things about Linux Mint, is that they like to stick mostly to the way it's always looked, and they've only changed little subtle things over the past couple of years. Like they've changed the icon pack a little bit, changed some little UI things, and upgrading GTK to make the theming a bit more compatible with different applications, with like Flatpak, for example. But the important thing with Linux Mint 22 is more what's under the hood that has actually changed. So instead of just upgrading a couple things, they are rebased to Ubuntu 24.04, which means that you get all these new components, these new packages that do improve your experience as a user, and can introduce some bugs sometimes, as it's brand new packages that are like 2 years newer, so they can introduce some bugs. But overall, it's a rebase to a newer Ubuntu version, which happens every like 2 years, I'm pretty sure. Linux Mint decides to do this, and this is what they're doing right now with 22, is rebasing to Ubuntu 24.04. So I say new packages, and what does that necessarily mean? Well, it means that you do get the Linux kernel 6.8, which means that you get better compatibility with newer hardware. And I feel like that's one of the issues with Linux Mint for the past 2 years, is that people have really new hardware and they make a YouTube video about using Linux, and they choose Linux Mint, and then what ends up happening is, since they're using such an old kernel, they have bad hardware compatibility out of the gate, and they're like, what the hell's going on? Why is my hardware not working properly? And then they have to go on Reddit or do a bunch of research, and then find out that they have to use a newer kernel or use the Linux Mint Edge version, and it's just a whole lot of issues that they have to work around to get it working. But with this version, it is on kernel 6.8, which means there is a lot more new patches available for different drivers. If you're using like an AMD card, you'll have better compatibility with like the AMD 7000 series GPUs, and then tons of fixes for the 6000s and 5000s and Vega series of GPUs. You'll just get better compatibility overall. Now, one of the things that is changing is that Linux Mint, with their 22 point releases, they will follow the HWE series, which basically means they're just going to update the kernel more quickly, so then you can get a better hardware compatibility with the kernel on Linux Mint, which is really good. That means that when people decide to review Linux Mint maybe like 2 years down the line, they should have a rather better compatibility with the distro actually working with their hardware. And of course, the other one is they did upgrade to MESA 24.0. So not the latest version of MESA. I was hoping it would be like 24.1, but I guess that's too new because they're basing off Ubuntu 24.04, not like 24.10 or whatever. So they do get the MESA 24.0, which, look, MESA 24.0 is a great release, and so when it comes to compatibility with AMD GPUs, you're going to get a great experience when it comes to using Linux Mint. Not necessarily the best experience, but you will get a decent experience, and you can, of course, swap out that MESA version for a kiosk version of MESA, which is a custom maintained version of MESA that gets updated more recently, and you can use it on Ubuntu based distros. So you can just use it on Linux Mint and then get more newer MESA releases, which means better compatibility with AMD, Intel hardware, NVIDIA GPUs also. And then also one of the other important things is that they have finally swapped over to PIPEWIRE, finally, which is a really good thing to do because Pulse Audio is, rather outdated. I've had tons of problems with Pulse Audio in the past, but I've tried to use Linux back in like 2016, 2017, and I've had problems where like on Zorian, for example, I remember this. I was trying to get my microphone working on my headset with Pulse Audio, and every time I restarted my laptop, I had a laptop at the time, every time I restarted my laptop, the audio settings would get reset. Every time. It was really annoying. And also my microphone was static as hell. It wasn't like background noise. It's like the microphone didn't even work. And my audio, like my sound of my voice sounded really robotic. It was horrible. It was a really bad experience in my opinion. And that kind of swayed me away from Linux for a couple of years until I heard about, Proton actually like improving game compatibility support. So it's really good to see that, Linux Mint is following switching over to PIPEWIRE. If you don't know what PIPEWIRE is, it's just like an audio daemon controller, and it uses an extra package usually to get the daemon like working of where PIPEWIRE should point to whatever audio device, which will usually be a wire plumber. That's it. The wire plumber will like direct PIPEWIRE to like whatever device that is needed to like be used, and it creates this really good experience when it comes to audio codecs being supported and Bluetooth support, and it's just a whole lot better in my opinion. And also, if you are using applications or games that are using Pulse Audio still, you do get the Pulse Audio PIPEWIRE package, or it's called PIPEWIRE Pulse, I'm pretty sure, and that handles, it just translates Pulse Audio to PIPEWIRE, and it works extremely well, surprisingly. I thought it was going to work horribly, but it works really well, because I know there's a lot of, I'm pretty sure all like games under Proton and Wine still use Pulse Audio, so when it comes to like microphones in the game or whatever, those are all being translated through the PIPEWIRE Pulse package, and it does a really good job. So it's really good that Linux Mint 22 is now using PIPEWIRE as the default sound server. Now the when it comes to GTK4, which if you don't know, it's basically the applications that get built under GNOME. Sometimes they're built under GTK3, but now they've moved to GTK4, and that's like what the theming is used. So Linux Mint has updated to support GTK4. So if you do have an application that uses GTK4, like for example, like resources, I'm pretty sure is one application that uses GTK4. As you can see here, it is working properly. It shows everything properly, looks nice, the icons look nice. Yeah, the whole theme works properly as it should. Also, GXL is now supported in Pix, and a new thumbnailer was implemented for it. This supersedes JPEG and others and has better compression with quality, which means, like GXL is supposed to be a new image codec that is like way better than JPEG, and it's really good for like, I think websites also using GXL or JXL. So that's really good to see that, Linux Mint is supporting things like that. That means people, if they are using JXL at some point, Linux Mint will just automatically support that. And there's a couple other things like high DPI support improvements were made in the boot sequence, support for popular features, like the updated package base doesn't just bring new technology, it can sometimes threaten existing features. So this is where, they were porting things like to GTK4, and they had a bunch of issues with the GNOME stuff. So they had to, they had to move the Thunderbird, and they have to natively maintain that now as their own Debian package because Ubuntu is moving to Snap, so they have to maintain that now. And then with GNOME 46, they moved some backend things to a new version, which moved them to GTK4, which means Linux Mint can no longer be used by GTK3 applications. But, so like applications like online accounts, for example, would stop working on multiple different desktop environments that use it. So like Cinnamon, Budgie, Unity, but it's okay though, because the XApp project has been implemented to a standalone application called GNOME Online Accounts. So now, that problem is basically solved. You can now use a separate application that is called GNOME Online Accounts GTK, and it does also bring, features for other desktop environments, so like Mate and XFCE. Now, we also, that they've rebased to Ubuntu 24.04. That means that there's a number of GNOME applications that had to be moved from the libaidwara and then stop supporting the system theme support. So that means that they had to kind of like figure out a way to support our system themes. And I remember there was someone talking to me about it, and all the problems they were doing and all the kind of like wrong choices they chose for moving over to something else to support the Adwara themes in the GNOME applications. And so with this problem, they had to remove some packages that no longer support that. So they had to remove the GNOME font viewer, and then a bunch of applications had to be downgraded back to GTK3 when this Ubuntu rebase would happen. So like Celluloid, for example, GNOME Calculator, Simple Scan, System Monitor, GNOME Calendar, File Roller, Zenity, I think that's how you say it, all got downgraded to GTK3. So you can't use the GTK4 versions of those applications on Linux Mint 22, and that's just a bummer, I guess. You'll just have to use the GTK3 version, which is, you know, like you miss out on a lot of good features when it comes to those applications moving to GTK4. There's a lot of new features that are available in those applications that I did mention, but I guess if you don't really care about that and you just want to use them for some very simple tasks, then you know, GTK3 will work just fine. I would say in most cases there'll be like no problems. And if we have a look here, like a calculator, for example, we just have a look at it, you know, it's the GTK3 version and it looks, you know, pretty okay, I guess. You know, it's nothing crazy. It does the job, you know, that's just easy math and that does the job, I would say. You know, there's some other things like Celluloid, which is a video player, I'm pretty sure, and that got downgraded to GTK3 and seems to do the job just fine. You know, when it comes to like certain toggles and stuff, it all looks fine. There's no real big issue necessarily, but if you are someone that wants GTK4 versions, then you're going to have to use a different distro that supports GTK4, which a lot of other distros do. So that's just something you would have to deal with. Now, I guess there is some improvements on the UI front, like the software manager, that got some improvements. So it loads a lot faster now. If you just open it right now, that took, that actually did not take very long. And this laptop is in like an i3. If I check it right now, if I do my system info and we have a look at the CPU, it's an i3 5005U and it goes at 2 gigahertz. And I'm pretty sure it's like 4 cores, 2 threads, or 2 cores, 4 threads, or something like that. And you know, that loaded pretty quickly. If we just close this and do it again, took about like 1.5 seconds to launch. Like, that's really impressive on this laptop, I would say. And you know, there's some other things, like there is a banner that should come up, but that doesn't come up for me. There should be a new banner. I'll show up a screenshot of what that looks like. Supposed to be a new banner on the store, but I can't see it, doesn't appear. But if we go into here, you know, all the stuff works properly. It shows the right, you know, images and all that, like OBS Studio, it shows it properly. We can select different repos and all that stuff, and you know, it's just a lot more faster at loading and updating, and overall just a better experience for the user. Now, there is one thing that they decided to do on this software manager, and if we go to preferences here, there is a new toggle that is disabled by default. So if you want this to be enabled and you can't find specific applications, it's because they have this disabled, which is show unverified Flatpaks, which in brackets it says not recommended, which yes and no. My stance on this is it should be enabled by default, because when you submit an application to FlatHub, I'm pretty sure it has to go through a couple things. A couple of maintainers have to look at the application you're trying to upload and then make sure it's an okay application to be put onto the FlatHub repo. So I would leave this ticked, but you know, that's okay if they want to leave it unticked, but it's unticked by default. So if you are installing Linux Mint and you can't see some applications under the FlatHub repo, it's because this is disabled by default. So I would enable this if you want to see more applications in your store that are unverified. Now, here comes the issues that I've had with Linux Mint. Well, on X11, on a single display laptop that's from 2015, there is no issues. I have a fine time, my Wi-Fi works properly, my speakers work properly, my display works properly, the refresh rate works properly, opening apps, themes, all work perfectly fine. There's no problems with that. Now, when we try and use Wayland, which is an experimental right now, so if you don't know, that's experimental. That means, like, you know, there's a lot of features that aren't implemented. There's going to be bugs, there's going to be issues you're going to experience. It is not ready. But when trying to use Wayland multiple times on this laptop, on Linux Mint 22, it has been a pretty alright experience when it comes to most things, like opening applications, installing applications, looking at videos, you know, watching movies or TV shows or whatever through Stremio. There is no issues with that. The issues that I did experience, though, was the theming issue, which I'll show a video, and this application is Stremio that I'm talking about, where the theming doesn't work, and it's probably something to do with XUD desktop portal, I'm guessing, and it's not interacting properly, it's not set up properly maybe with Stremio, but as you can see here, the header looks perfectly fine, but I'll show a video of what it looks like under Wayland, and it does not look okay. It does not respect the theme at all. It's like a white header, and it uses its own cursor, which it does use its own cursor on here also under X11, and I mean, that's okay. That's not really an issue necessarily. My eyes do get blinded a bit because I'm like watching this stuff in the dark, but that's one issue that I've experienced. And then the other one is I can't drag and drop. So I can't drag a file and I can't drop it in Firefox. I can't drag a file from File Manager to another File Manager. I can't drag a file to the terminal. You know, if I wanted to, like, for example, I wanted to flash a new ROM on my phone, I couldn't drag the file onto the terminal to do a sudo adb sideload. Couldn't do that to show like the directory, so I couldn't just drag and drop. I had to like type it in manually, which is a bit annoying, but you know, there's no issues with that. It's just the drag and drop functionality simply does not work, while it does work on something like KDE Plasma Wayland, for example. And then the other one I just experienced just before, when I was trying to do mirroring under Wayland, it can't do mirror properly. So when I plugged it in with my capture card, there was insane like flicker, not like flicker like VR flicker, like actual like display monitor like flicker, where it was like turning off and on like really fast, and it was like resetting, and I couldn't change the resolution, and I couldn't mirror it either. Now as you can see here, I am running Linux Mint under Wayland on the Cinnamon desktop, and I'm trying to capture it right now with this capture card. It's a XR1 capture card, and as you can see here, I'm trying to mirror it, and it's flickering, and if I try to change to the second one, it will just reset. As you can see, it just keeps resetting whenever I try to click on it to change the settings. Like I can do it right now, for example. I can't hit apply because that's grayed out, and then it will just start doing the flicker again, and I just won't be able to capture or mirror my display, so then it can come up in OBS, or change like the FPS of like the fake monitor, which is the capture that I'm trying to mirror this display, which you can see right now because it's working under X11. So that was one other issue. And then I guess the other things is like, you know, there's experimental fractional scaling, so that's something that will have to be worked on and improved. I don't know if it actually works properly, because this monitor is you know, the correct monitor. It's not like it's not 1440p or 4K. There's no insane fractional scaling. And then the other things is like there's no VR, there's no HDR. Those things of course will come later down the line, because you know it's experimental Wayland on Cinnamon desktop. So this stuff, I guess, just, you know, it takes time, it takes money, it takes resources, it takes time out of developers' time, because usually they do it for free. I guess some of them may get paid, but most of the time it's like, you know, free work. And so these features do take a while, but I do hope that they do arrive, because, you know, Linux Mint is a very popular desktop environment, and I bet there's a lot of Linux Mint users that do want to use Wayland at some point, and they don't want to feel left out. And hopefully by then, which I guess maybe in like a year or so, those features will be like fully implemented, and Wayland on Cinnamon desktop will be, you know, fully done. So when it comes to my actual experience with Linux Mint 22, it has been a fine experience. I don't really use this laptop for anything else really. It's just general browsing. It's going on Stremio and just watching some TV shows or movies, which does the job just fine. And then, you know, using some Flatpak applications, and that's really it. And maybe flashing a ROM on my phone when I feel like it, either on this computer or on my laptop. And yeah, that's my experience with Linux Mint. There's nothing really much else to say. Would I recommend Linux Mint for, you know, new users? I would say with Linux Mint 22, yes, I would recommend it. It is 100%. You can try it out now under X11. Now, that's a big caveat, because I know if you run AMD or if you run NVIDIA also, that may be yes or no. When you try and run multi-monitor refresh rates under X11, there's an issue that's been an issue for a very long time, where, you know, one refresh rate will not not be actually 144 hertz. It's going to use the lowest refresh rate on X11, so it's going to pick your 60 hertz monitor and it's going to use it on the 144 hertz monitor, no matter if the 144 hertz is selected. So that's one issue that I've always experienced under X11 on multiple desktops, both GNOME, KDE Plasma, and Cinnamon desktop. So that's one issue to consider. But if you're not running multi-monitors, and let's say you're just running a single laptop or you're running a single monitor on a computer, then Linux Mint can definitely be for you. Or if you just want to test out Wayland on the Cinnamon desktop, and it's an experimental phase, you definitely can try it. And with that new PIPEWIRE, with the improvements to the software manager, I guess GTK4 theming improved, and then also like getting the kernel 6.8, and then getting MESA 24.0 that you can switch over if you want to get newer versions. It definitely can be a distro that you can use, and it definitely is still the king of like LTS distros, I would say. The other LTS distro would be like Debian, of course, because Debian is just like the best for that type of stuff. But Linux Mint is definitely a second place when it comes to like a LTS distro. It's very, very good at what it does and what it provides for a new user. So that's my conclusion with Linux Mint. If you guys did enjoy this video, you definitely can give it a like. I didn't really muck around the desktop that much, because it's not really much to show. It's like the exact same as Linux Mint has always been. It's literally the exact same. So it's like no point really showing it because it just looks identical to the last version of Linux Mint. So of course, thank you for watching the video. You definitely can give it a like if you want to. Thank you for like 5.2 thousand subscribers, I think we're at. So yeah, thank you for that, and thank you to my members also. I saw a screenshot up of them. I appreciate you guys giving me money every month or so. I really do appreciate that. And you of course can become a member also. It's like rather cheap, I would say, but definitely don't give me your money specifically. I would actually give your money to Linux, different Linux groups, different Linux projects, because those actually matter when it comes to the Linux desktop improving and getting more features and stuff like that, because that's what really matters here, is that we try and improve the desktop experience and get new people on board to try out Linux desktop, because it's a really good desktop, I would say. So I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.